This is the Ben Shapiro Show. Well, we've seen a bunch of calls in recent days for a complete United States pullout from Afghanistan. That is in the wake of a tragic exchange of fire between U.S. and Afghan troops in Nangarhar province, in which last reports counted 2 Americans dead and 6 wounded, in which Afghan forces also took casualties. Joining us on the line to discuss is Lieutenant Colonel James Carafano. He's the Vice President of Foreign and Defense Policy Studies at the Heritage Foundation, a 25-year Army veteran and part of President Trump's transition team. Lieutenant Colonel, thanks so much for joining the show. Really appreciate it.
Hey, great to be with you.
So, first of all, there have been a lot of calls. I've been seeing a lot of them lately, really elevating in sort of tenor and pitch for a full American withdrawal from Afghanistan. Do we have any interest in Afghanistan at this point? Why shouldn't we just pull out?
So we have 2 interests. One is we don't want it to, again, become a sanctuary and a platform for transnational terrorism. We have lots of evidence to show why a wide open space for plotting and recruiting and attracting foreign fighters is very, very dangerous, not just in Afghanistan before 9/11, but we saw a similar thing with the Caliphate in Syria. So that's one thing. It's all around the world we're trying to take space away from transnational terrorists. Opening up a new one would be a bad idea. The other one is we have a stake in regional stability. India is an important strategic partner for the United States, particularly in dealing with China. A stable Afghanistan stabilizes the relationship between a nuclear India and nuclear Pakistan. It also allows India to focus on the strategic challenge of dealing with China. So we have 2 pretty significant interests there. And when you say interests, it's costs and benefits. Okay, there's a benefit, but then what's the cost? And I think this is the piece that people really aren't paying attention to. We have very modest commitments in Afghanistan. The number we're going to is about 9,000 soldiers, about the number that were there when the president came in office. We spend in a year in Afghanistan about what we used to spend in about a week, so it's not a big investment. And I know people are very upset about this incident that happened over the weekend, but what they forget is a couple of years ago, those kinds of attacks were actually endemic. They were happening all the time. They rarely happen anymore, in part because the U.S. and Afghans do a much better job cooperating. The Afghan military is much more professional than it was 3 or 4 years ago. And the reality is that we have far fewer troops there, and they're not engaged in direct combat operations. They're doing advise and assist missions for the Afghans, and they're doing counterterrorism missions. So we're not, I know there's a lot of rhetoric about fighting an endless war, and I wouldn't argue that there isn't a war continuing going on in Afghanistan, but the reality is we're not fighting it.
Well, speaking about that, everybody is constantly talking, Lieutenant Colonel James Carafano, about having an exit plan, about the idea that we're supposed to go into wars, have an exit plan, and get out. Realistically speaking, the United States exit plan has generally not involved completely abandoning the territory upon which a conflict was fought. We still have bases in Germany. We still have bases in which American soldiers are in South Korea. We still have bases all over planet Earth, and we have soldiers spread across planet Earth. I don't know where this weird idea came from that when a quote-unquote war winds down, that America then withdraws its troops and has no part to play in the future of a country, especially when, as you say, it's more of approaching kind of the levels of a skeleton force in Afghanistan as opposed to a full-scale, boots-on-the-ground, 100,000 troop presence there. The broadening of the definition of endless war to include basic peacekeeping after a war is winding down, that seems pretty dangerous in terms of how we talk about foreign policy.
It is. I mean, if you think of it in terms of forest fires, when a forest fire is put to bed, you leave people behind because if there are sparks and somebody isn't there to kind of tender that, then the forest fire just kicks up again. And it is kind of a similar concept. And again, whether we're there or not there is not the metric of whether Americans are safe or not, are America and its interests protected, and are they protected at a reasonable cost and investment in the precious lives of our military and our national resources? That's how you judge things. And people say, well, it's an unwinnable war in Afghanistan. And the answer is, yeah, you're right. It is unwinnable. The Taliban cannot win in Afghanistan. They have proven that again and again. The only reason why they're going to the negotiating table is they know they cannot win. They know they cannot stop the people of Afghanistan from having a future. And that as long as our small presence is there, we prevent that. The people of Afghanistan hate they want peace, but they hate the Taliban. And it's incredible that this president who got vilified and we didn't abandon the people in Syria. We actually just made an adjustment, which has made more sense for us. We got vilified for leaving Syria, and now he gets vilified for not leaving Afghanistan. I think people are, I'm not putting what people are thinking, but you cannot make very superficial assessments about these things. You have to be serious about it and say, what is America's interest? What are we doing? Is it working? And is that a worthy price for what we get out of it?
Well, the Lieutenant Colonel James Carafano, thanks for adding some perspective on the situation in Afghanistan. We're always looking for easy answers in difficult parts of the world. Really appreciate your time, sir.
Thanks for having me.
All right.